Around 30 years ago, General Motors actually closed down 21 factories and fired 74,000 staff. This was known as the Christmas Massacre. A lot of people think that this could happen again. So what exactly happened? Hello my friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. Around 30 years ago, General Motors announced it would close 21 North American plants over the next 4 years and slash 74,000 jobs, decimating auto worker communities already reeling from years of double-digit unemployment. The announcement hit auto communities like a bloody Christmas massacre. After this happened, General Motors pivoted much of the company. They began producing a lot more cars in Mexico. They also began producing a hell of a lot more cars and building factories in China. As you know, a lot of those factories in China will be closed over the next few years. The statement General Motors made back in 1991 said that 6 vehicle assembly plants, 4 powertrain plants, and 11 component plants would be permanently closed. United Auto Workers President Owen Bieber and UAW Vice President Stephen P. Jokic, head of the union's General Motors department, compared General Motors to Ebenezer Scrooge. This is what they said: both in the long and the short term, strategies which close plants, reduce employment, and curtail capital spending are self-defeating. This announcement will not only strengthen our resolve to fully enforce General Motors contracts, it will further energize us to win the White House. As you know, around 23 years later, General Motors actually did go bankrupt. So, whilst the UAW might have been declaring victory by saying "we told you so," the truth is that actually the biggest reason General Motors went bankrupt was because of the very high costs of building its cars in America. Those costs have actually grown. One of GM's 2 plants back in 1991 that produced large rear-wheel drive cars, the plant in Arlington, which was based in Arlington, was actually shut down. So was another one in Texas. In addition to the plant and factory closings, General Motors accelerated a white-collar job reduction program that eliminated 6,000 jobs that same year. An additional 9,400 salary jobs would be eliminated the following year. Now, this has a kind of an eerie echo to what has happened in early 2024 when General Motors announced they would remove and, essentially fire more than 5,000 white-collar workers at the company. But another thing that General Motors has been doing is actually reducing its headcount in terms of actual contracted, full salaried workers. Now, GM planned to reduce its hourly workforce by 15,000 people through attrition and retirement back then. And it's still doing a similar thing today. But here's what's even worse. Back then, as in today as well, assembly plant closings will affect supply plants inside and outside GM's factories themselves. And that significantly increases the layoffs. So whilst General Motors did in fact fire 74,000 people back in 1991, it probably directly, indirectly, or we could even say directly, actually influenced the jobs of more than 1 million people in the United States. Could this happen again? Well, yes, of course it could. I mean, General Motors went bankrupt in 2008. Could they go bankrupt again? I think it's very, very likely. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, hang on a minute, GM's making big profits at the moment. That's true, they are. Even though they did just write down their losses in China at more than $5 billion, outside of China, they're actually doing okay. But so was Stellantis in 2023. And look at where they're at now. Now, it's true that General Motors will continue to face massive losses in China and probably eventually pull out of the country altogether, meaning write-downs of up to $20 billion are likely coming. But GM vehicles are still very popular in the United States. Unfortunately, though, that means the company could eventually simply be a US company that sells vehicles to people in Mexico, maybe Canada, the US. It's not really that big of a car market. The global car market is 80 million. And General Motors for many years now has sold cars to much of the global population. In fact, in some countries, General Motors has had almost complete market share. In Uzbekistan, they have 98% of the market. That's starting to change now though. And here's one more thing you might be interested to know. Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, has recently sold a massive percentage of her stock. Now, my question is this: why did she do that? She has plenty of money. Why did the CEO of GM decide that it was better to sell now than to wait for GM's great results over the next few years under her leadership? Now, if you're listening to other Americans who love General Motors, or if you're listening to a company like Inside EVs who crowned her World Person of the Year for 2024, you might be led to believe that everything's going to be great for GM. But let's be honest, China is taking over the global automotive industry, and there's very little General Motors can do to stop that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Could the 1991 Christmas Massacre repeat itself, or is this something that's just simply destined for the history books of the past? Within the past 10 years, General Motors has lost all of its sales, almost all of them in Europe, Australia, Thailand, the UK, many markets worldwide, New Zealand, the list goes on. It's now pretty much a North America and Central and South America company only. Its market share in China has shriveled and is losing steam rapidly. But General Motors has a plan. It will sell its electric vehicles in all those markets. It will make them in China at a cost that, well, American companies and European companies cannot compete with, and it will claw back the market share that it has lost. General Motors has clearly made this decision. It's evident in the recent statements that it has made. I'm really surprised the media have not realized that General Motors has made an enormous pivot within the past 5 days. I've mentioned a few times that General Motors are focusing only on the United States and China. They're losing market share in China, so therefore they need to hold on to as much market share as they can in Northern America. In China, it's sort of game over for them. But in the USA and Canada and even Mexico, General Motors can continue to make large profits on their vehicles if they take electrification seriously. However, General Motors just went and did something that I don't believe anyone really noticed. I think it's very clear they've completely changed their global strategy. I mean, completely. And this, in my opinion, could potentially double General Motors sales within the next 10 years, 5 years possibly even.